players of a lot of varying skill levels, and all of that has led us here today to the first match of this best-of-3 finals.
Yeah, it's really amazing how motivating an event like this can be to players to really push themselves so much farther than they ever have had to before.
Yep. And it looks like we are off. So we find ourselves, as all Link to the Past runs and most Zelda games do, starting off asleep in bed. For those who have not had the pleasure of playing this game before, you hear a voice in the middle of the night telling you that something bad is going down at the castle. Your uncle goes to check it out, tells you to stay put, but you are a disobedient little elf.
That's right. You know, a lot of modern games have tutorials that you're supposed to follow. If you followed this as if it was a tutorial, it would not be a very fun game, would it?
No. In fact, that's one of the things that I really liked about this game is growing up, is it just, in a lot of Zelda games, it just throws you straight into it.
Yeah, you kind of have to figure things out for yourself.
Yep. But both of our racers are now picking up their first piece of equipment, the sword and shield, and are going to make their way into escape. Early in the game, there's not a whole lot that you can do. You can swing a sword and you can move around. The only real technique that you have at your disposal right now, which you're going to see a little bit, is something called pumping. Toby, can you tell us about... I'm going to do that a few times. Can you tell us a little bit about pumping, what it is, and why our racers are doing it?
Yeah, I won't go into excruciating detail about this, but it is a movement technique. The game uses some very complicated sub-pixel calculations to determine the movement pattern. But we can kind of take advantage of that and reset the sub-pixels, which causes us to reset the movement pattern. Since the movement speed is approximately 3 pixels every 2 frames, you alternate moving 2 pixels and 1 pixel per frame. And you're able to sometimes link 2 pixel frames together and effectively get a single pixel boost. It may seem negligible, but they're going to be doing this action almost invisibly a few thousand times throughout the whole run to gain about 10 seconds.
Yep. So we are now making our way deeper into the escape, on our way to find Zelda. A couple of guard quick kills here, one with the blue guard to get a key and that green one, and then one more here, a poke and a spin to take out a blue guard and pick up our boomerang.
So the boomerang is a very useful item. You can stun most enemies with it and also retrieve items with it. This is not one of the games where you can retrieve items with your sword, but it is kind of fun to see players who come from other Zelda games try to pick up items with their swords sometimes.
Yep. And also, as we get into, well, real quick, we got the ball and chain guard coming up here. Both runners are going to go for the 8-slash technique. Couple of parries on each runner's side. Blunt having a bit of trouble, but cleans him up.
Oh, yeah. Might be seeing a little nerves there. I mean, these players do have a lot of experience playing in different competitions and in different stages. BluntBunny himself having played at an AGDQ before. Josh having experience commentating at AGDQ a few times. That doesn't mean that there isn't going to still be a little nerves here.
Right, absolutely. So now that we have picked up our princess, we are making our way back out of the dungeon and into the back half of escape.
Yeah, a little bit later, we're going to see a lot more impactful RNG coming up in enemy patterns specifically. And one of the hallmarks of top players in this game, and one of the ways you can really optimize the game, is by mitigating and handling RNG patterns and mitigating the time loss. Since sometimes time loss, unfortunately, is necessary, but because there's so much RNG over such a large statistical sample, it technically balances itself out, you know, for the most part.
Yep. Yeah, and here in the escape, that RNG is going to come in the form of rats and bats and snakes, who in the upcoming sewers are going to be getting in the way, and one particular rat carrying a key that can either help or really hurt you, depending on which way he decides to move.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little more when it happens, but it's probably the most significant single piece of RNG in this whole segment. This
So we've
is
got
the fourth major NMG tournament that we've had. The last one happening in 2016. Scrivo, my co-commentator, is the host of this tournament. This is the largest one by a pretty significant margin, I'd say.
Yeah, we had 128 entrants and a wait list beyond that, so it was very good to see the interest in the game really boom over the past few months. A lot of new runners, a lot of runners that had retired kind of came back to it, and a lot of the experienced runners used it as motivation to grind down their already good times even further.
Yeah, for sure. Here comes the key rat. You're going to see one of three main patterns on the rat itself.
Looks like they both got similar ones.
Yeah. Both, that's kind of the medium pattern, but the medium compared to best is a very small difference, and the worst compared to medium is a pretty big difference. So nice to see them at least getting similar RNG.
Making the way through the last two rooms of the escape, skipping a text box that nobody has seen in at least 10 years.
Yeah, forget that one's there sometimes.
And 552 escape for Josh and a 553 for Blunt. And the first major decision point, which I don't think is really a decision at all for either of these runners, will they get the Sanctuary Heart?
I think the decision we might see not to do a chest turn on this chest. Both of these players will skip this safety item in a PB attempt, but in a high-profile tournament race, we're going to see them get that. Not taking any unnecessary risks here, but a 3-second loss and a significant amount of additional safety.
Yep. Well, we are now through the escape and on our way to the first Light World Dungeon, Eastern Palace. We are still limited, and really what we can do, all we have at this point is a sword, a shield, a boomerang, and a lamp. But we will make the best of it and see what happens.
Yeah, still making a strong effort to optimize your walking movement. Gonna be trying to cut these corners as tight as they can. Gonna try to get in the doors as close to center and doing that pumping. Save just a few frames pretty much everywhere. Really adds up.
Yep. And one thing to keep an eye on in these first few Light World dungeons is looking up for rupee drops. Before the end of Tower of Hera, we want to have at least 14 rupees, and the bulk of those drops are probably going to come here in Eastern Palace. So I don't think I've seen a whole lot of drops from either runner. They're hoping to get around a rupee prize pack to pick up at least a few blues and hopefully a red. We'll see what happens.
Drops in this game, they're not technically manipulatable, but they are somewhat predictable. Most enemies have a random chance to drop, but what they drop is completely determined. So they'll see them come in a specific pattern from a specific subset of enemies. And they'll be able to take advantage of that to hopefully get a good rupee drop in their way.
Yeah, we're coming up here on the Stelphos room. 4 Stelphos are supposed to spawn, but by moving in a precise pattern. Ooh, Josh with the mistake, throwing the pot up and having to kill 3 skeletons instead of 2. Minor error.
Take the lead back.
Yeah, it's a minor error, but it's enough to kind of, I think that's probably about 1.5 seconds, which at the caliber of runners that we have here is significant.
Yeah, both players picking up those optional arrows there. Those arrows are technically optional, but they sort of enable a gamble when you choose not to take them. If you do take them, there's no gamble, no risk, and you definitely are going to have enough.
An interesting decision by BluntBunny there to boomerang that Popo when hitting the switch. He could have slashed it and hoped to get a drop from it, but he just took the quicker boomerang animation and get it out of the way. Meanwhile, Josh did slash it, and he did get a blue rupee from it. So
that's really surprising. The difference in timing between the boomerang and the sword is only maybe a couple frames at most. And if you don't get a good drop there, you still push the prize pack forward. So it's his choice.
All right.
Solid
big key.
Skipping both.
Yep.
It looks like Josh has taken the lead back.
Yeah, I expect at least through the up until Landmola's, I expect them to be within the same room of each other constantly. So.
Yeah, barring any major mistakes.
And we're going in here to the Dark Igor room. A couple of different strats that you can take. Blunt going with a 1-slash approach, and Josh going with a no-slash. Blunt using that opportunity, though, to kill a Popo, get that blue drop, and get some rupees where he needs them.
Yeah, that puts him a little closer to an equal rupee count. It is a great place to potentially get 1 or 2 rupee drops.
Into the Zelda Gamer room. Really good RNG for Blunt, not quite as good for Josh, and that evens it up.
See if we get any rupee drops right before the boss fight here.
Ooh, I'm surprised Blunt didn't pick that second blue up.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a mistake. He definitely should have gone a couple pixels out of his way to pick up that other blue drop. Because as you said, 14 arrows is the amount that they need.
Armos quick kill successful for both runners.
Yeah. Very nearly identical.
Yep, Blunt in the better position as far as arrow routing, but Josh with the 1 extra rupee. Now, both of them realizing that they are a little bit low on rupees, they can either take a gamble on getting some drops from one of the few Popos that will be in their way in Desert, but there's also a 5 rupee pot that they might pick up. But here we get a chance to talk about our first Japanese 1.0 exclusive minor glitch, the spin speed. Scudge, can you tell us about spin speed, how it works, and how we'll be using it?
Yeah, sure. After these players get the boots, they're actually going to be able to sort of lock the dash charge countdown variable at the top of the countdown. Now, the game checks this and does some weird things. When you change terrain, it's actually going to give you dashing speed while having the maneuverability of normal walking. You have to move specifically from stairs onto normal ground after executing the glitch. The way to execute the glitch is simply to charge a spin, release the spin, and then immediately press the A button. The first frame the spin is released. That locks that variable and allows them to do that glitch. Over the course of the run, there's 2 different ways to implement it, and combined, I think the time save is between 20 and 30 seconds. There are several that are very small time saves, and therefore we consider to be optional, depending on your competency and consistency with the glitch. But I think these 2 players will be doing just about every single one that anybody will do.
Yep, here's the one of the optional ones right here. Executed well, that one saves approximately half a second, but it's easy to throw all of that time save away with some unoptimal movement. But
yeah, a little bit of unoptimal movement or just simply missing the glitch even a single time will lose all the time that it could potentially save.
But we now have our book, and that will enable us to get to the next Light World dungeon, Desert Palace. And along the way, we're going to get to see something that we try to route in. It's something called an item buffer. So we know that we need to switch items. And one of the important things to note is you can use those opportunities to menu to either read RNG or help you stop your movement on a specific pixel. You saw both runners stop and menu to the book before turning a corner while dashing. It basically is just, you know you need that item next, use the menu at a point that it helps your movement. So it's one thing to keep an eye on throughout the run, the different ways that they place their menus and choose to manage their items.
Yeah, a lot of players have some discrepancies about when they like to use all of those menu buffers. There are some that are more standard and more common, but you may see some players doing very unique and personalized usages of those.
Yep. We are here in Desert Palace in true Nintendo game design fashion. Get an item, use an item. You just got the boots, so Desert Palace is going to start you off with some big open spaces, and between the book and that key on a torch, introductions to the mechanics of bonking. So, also we talked about movement when walking. One of the other big things with movement in this game is maximizing your dashes, making sure you're starting and stopping your dashes as early and late, respectively, as possible. So that starts gaining importance here in Desert.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, throughout most of this dungeon, it's fairly consistent. There isn't too much significant RNG, with a few exceptions. The cannonball room that they're entering now is one of them. They may have to stop a dash. You saw BluntBunny have to stop his dash. He's going to lose a little bit of time in this room compared to Josh having to stop a dash again. And of course, that consistency and lack of RNG of this dungeon is completely contrasted by the boss, who is one of the biggest sources of difficult RNG in the whole run.
See if they pick up this rupee pot.
Somebody skipped an interesting arrow pot there. I don't think I've ever seen somebody skip that one specifically.
He got it going the other direction.
Oh, that's unusual.
Also unusual, yes. But
yeah, that's why I missed it. I would never expect that.
Blunt did pick up that 5 rupee pot, so Blunt now with 15 rupees has everything he needs. He'll get the rest from some trees later, which we'll show you when it comes up. Josh, though, is 3 short of where he wants. He can still manage with these 11. He'll just have to go out of his way and pick up another blue later.
Yeah. In the normal rupee route, there are a few opportunities to pick up guaranteed backups, but they are not the fastest rupees that you can get. So getting them from drops or doing an early backup may be superior. I do know BluntBunny is a fan of this specific backup, so I'm not too surprised to see him get that.
Yep. All right. Here in the second half of Desert. Yeah, see, Josh didn't get any of those drops in the right place that he wanted them, so he's still stuck with the 11.
Yeah, that's too bad. Seeing these players also dash through locked doors in this dungeon. That's a mechanic we call a key dash, where if you dash through a locked door at an interval of, or a multiple of 4 pixels away from the door, you can get through it. You see it a couple times in this dungeon and several more times throughout the run. Luckily, the Super Nintendo engine constructs everything in 8 pixel by 8 pixel blocks, so every object is on a multiple of 4 pixels, and you can line yourself up with pretty much any object in the whole game.
All right, I'll keep an eye on BluntBunny's. I'll keep an eye on BluntBunny. You watch Josh.
All right. Coming at the exact same time. Really good first cycle for Josh, distributing the arrows extremely well.
And if
getting 2, is he gonna get a 3rd kill? Oh, Josh got a 2 cycle.
And Blunt with an early 3, very nice.
Wow. 2 cycle is the best that a human being can possibly do, and early 3 is not much worse. That's 2 incredible fights from 2 incredible players.
You know what? I think a 2 cycle is worth a couple of data faces in the chat.
I think so too. All right, coming out of Desert Palace, we're going to see another Japanese 1.0 version exclusive glitch called the fake flippers, whereby they're going to swim without having the flippers in order to do a shortcut to the next dungeon. They're going to do this by jumping into the water a single frame of movement away from the edge of the screen, that is 1 or 2 pixels, and then moving through the transition. This is a little bit risky because if they take any damage in the water on a screen other than the one in which they jumped, the game will potentially soft lock. There's a way to save it, however, from soft locking, which we will allow the players to do in this tournament. Although in a normal speedrun, it would be technically disallowed.
Yep. Yeah, and luckily that fake flipper trick has a very nice setup for it that essentially makes it near foolproof. So takes a good element of the danger away.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of danger, after they get through this cave system here, they're going to be on what's called Death Mountain.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it's very appropriately named. This is a place where RNG can really hurt them. There's enemies called Dead Rocks, which can completely block your path, and it takes them about 10 seconds to get out of your way. And of course, during that time, boulders will be raining down upon you. And we will see another application of the super speed glitch. This is one that not only saves time, but also makes the screen easier because it gives you more mobility. You don't have to stand still for half a second to charge a dash, and you don't have to move in exactly straight lines.
Yep.
We'll be doing that after they pass the first flight of stairs on Death Mountain.
All right, both of them avoiding some boulders out of the cutscene. And getting their super speed and climbing the mountain with a quickness. And you're also going to... Yeah, real quick, you're going to also see the first application of what's called a quick warp here. By entering this warp from the right side, for whatever reason, it shortens that warp animation by 34 frames.
Yeah, it's just some weird math that gets done that accidentally returns 0 early. Some bitwise operations make a little mistake.
We are now in the third Light World dungeon, the Tower of Hera. Probably one of the more difficult Light World dungeons. in that there's a lot of places to make some very costly mistakes that hopefully we will not see.
Yeah, it is a challenging dungeon. It's also there's a lot of pretty cute little tricks. We're going to see another 1.0 glitch. The first use is the item dash, in this case a boomerang dash. We're going to be doing it slightly different. Josh likes to do the diagonal boomerang dash. And the reason for this is because if you make a mistake with the diagonal boomerang dash, the consequences are less severe. If you do the vertical one, the right angle one, like we saw BluntBunny do, then the consequences of failure can actually be more significant.
Is BluntBunny infinitely dashing up?
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
There's a few places in the game where you can get an infinite dash. I'd be a little apprehensive to try that one. Accidentally dash off those pegs. They do have invulnerability while they're standing on the pegs. And they're going to try to hit this last tile as early as possible and get out that door as quickly as possible.
All right, gonna light some torches and pick up our Tower of Hera big key.
Lighting torches in this game is surprisingly difficult to do fast.
Speaking of things that are difficult to do fast, one of the, in my opinion, one of the hardest rooms in the light world, this beetle room. And Blunt, right away, having some trouble, misses the first beetle.
Yeah, going to take a little damage there, hopefully cleaning up just fine, yeah. And we saw a couple of arrow drops. A couple of random prize pack drops. I think BluntBunny was able to pick his up, but Josh unfortunately had to let his go.
Yep. And now we're going to see the first of our 4 bomb jumps that you'll see throughout the run. The Hera bomb jump, basically, with a bonk, they have to be 6 pixels away or less from the hole. Without a bonk, they have to be 2 or less. Both are going to use the bonk, and Blunt coming in hot with the chest turn.
Oh, man. The chest turn, the imaginary frame save.
Both of ooh, little trouble with the bumper skip, but Blunt's able to back out of it before disaster strikes.
Oh, nice. Yeah, being able to tell that he was not on the correct pixel quickly enough is very, very nice. Voldorm can be a very difficult boss. He's very RNG dependent, and if you happen to fall, you have to redo the fight from the beginning. His health will recharge. It's the only boss room you can leave in the whole game without glitches, and usually when it happens, it is unintentional.
Pretty decent Moldorm fights from both, and
Blunt being a little cautious at the end there, losing him a couple extra seconds and allowing Josh to kind of extend his lead there a little bit.
Yep, but Josh now has to go a little bit out of his way to get his rupee count back to where he wants. He's going to have to pick up... So what we have coming up is something called Tree Rupees. You need 110 rupees to get into the first dungeon of Palace of Darkness, and clearly we haven't picked that much up. We've gone past a few rupee chests. What we are going to do, however, is take advantage of a kill counter in the game, and the fact that there are certain sprites that are pullable and that will produce rupee drops. We're going to pull a tree coming up, and it's going to check to see how many enemies that we have killed. And it's going to see that we've killed more than 4 enemies, but we have taken damage. So it's going to give us blue rupees, and it's going to reset the counter. The racers are normally only going to pick up 2. Josh is going to grab 3 of them. Actually, he might normally get 3 because of this route that he takes. But we're going to then proceed through the Lost Woods, killing 4 enemies without taking damage, and that's going to let us pull another tree, which will give red rupees, which will put us at 105 and 106 respectively, which gets us close to the 110 that we need for pod, and that is our rupee route.
Yeah, they can be as low as 104 here and still be confident because there are guaranteed 6 rupees that you're going to pick up in the next dungeon, Aghanim's Tower, before they get to the Palace of Darkness.
Yep. And of course, you know, the one thing that you do not want to have happen is to take damage while returning to the tree and pulling the red. There are a few bushes where I haven't seen either of our runners get the bush guard yet. So there are a few bushes where when dashing through, a green guard can pop out of it. And if you're not expecting it, and if it's the second bush where you're canceling a dash, it's very easy to get to take some damage from that green guard and throw off your rupee route.
Yeah. Also worth noting is the guard's reaction time is based on a thing called the frame rule, which means there can be a high amount of variability. As soon as he spawns, he can react and turn towards you immediately, or he could wait up to, I believe, 32 frames. If he turns immediately, though, it's bad news.
Ooh, Blunt missed one of the reds, had to kind of stop his dash and go get it.
At least he was aware of that.
But we are now on the way to the last Light World dungeon, the Aghanim's Tower. I think it's fair to say that... Oh, Josh! What? Okay, so Josh had a little bit of adventure trying to turn north and dash. First he dashed left, then he walked down, and then he hugged a blue guard.
Yeah, and being not at full hearts is kind of a big deal here because you want to have sword beams for strategy in the second room of this of the upstairs part of this dungeon. It saves a few arrows to have them, and it is a little bit faster overall because of that, because of the arrow route. He is at a healthy arrow count, so it's not going to be too consequential for him, but he's going to have to spend a few more than BluntBunny is here.
Oh, nice, nice backup though from Josh.
Oh yeah, okay.
But he is not going to try to preserve his prize pack. Just goes in and spins the blue guards. Interesting.
All right, yeah, we did mention prize packs a little early. I said the drops aren't really technically manipulatable, but there is one thing that we can do, which is to force enemies to not give you drops. And that's what they try to do early in this dungeon in order to preserve good drops for later. We saw Josh get a single drop and Blunt get no drops, which means that Blunt is almost guaranteed to get the fairy, a fairy drop in Turtle Rock much later, unless something terrible happens in between. Josh, however, has a 50% chance of losing that fairy early. That's pretty much out of his control.
Yeah, he can lose it on the hammer jump bridge, and it's possible if something goes wrong in the mummy key room in Skull, he could lose it there.
Yeah. Aghanim's Tower is basically one big gauntlet. It's a completely linear dungeon, even not for speedrunners, but in a casual playthrough. Every room has a single entrance and a single exit, and there's no time saved, no shortcuts if you have to die and start over.
Very nice strat there by Josh in the 2 red spear guard room with the middle arrows. Handled that very well. Blunt having some trouble with these 2 red spear guards. Meanwhile, Josh getting through Circle of Pops without any problem. Blunt dealing with RNG well and getting through himself.
Yeah, Josh getting back up to full hearts definitely did help him in a couple rooms there. The sword beams are actually used not only for a ranged attack, but they can alert guards. And you can use that to get their attention, to get them to come towards you. And that's actually what allows a few strategies to work.
Yep. But we are now here. Yeah, now it's Aghanim. Nobody is truly in the lead until they have defeated Aghanim.
Pretty safe to say. Yeah, so this is this fight, the results are almost completely outside of your control. The execution that's required is incredibly simple, and other than that, it's just a lot of coin flips. You can lose 6 seconds at a time every time a coin lands on tails. You can get between 0 and 15 of those.
Yeah, unfortunately, okay, Josh's stream is back. We lost Josh for a little bit. So it's one for Josh.
The Aghanim fight. Darn.
2 for Josh.
Oh, you're actually counting.
Oh yeah, I can just count lightning, can't I?
Yeah, because of the way this fight works, there's a specific attack pattern, which means that there's kind of an algorithm we can use to determine how many blue balls they got just by counting the lightning and determining how many attacks happen after a certain lightning cycle. Usually what I like to do is wait until after the fight and then wait for the racers to type how many they got in the chat. That happens pretty often.
Well, I think that was 1 for Blunt.
Yeah, it looks like better RNG is going to allow Blunt to retake the lead here. And if we see a kill right after that lightning, it would be 3, but we're seeing more attacks here for Josh. So
that is unfortunate, but there is still a lot of game left to be played. But now, BluntBunny is in the lead.
Yeah. Yeah, now it's up to Josh to make up that difference. It's not the only major RNG location in the game. And of course, there's quite a lot of minor RNG throughout the whole game. But it is pretty significant.
Yep.
but it is the game. I mean, we all know about this going into it, and it's something we do have to accept. Otherwise, we would run a different game.
It is also pretty much the reason why the finals are best of 3. You know, while a best of 3 throughout the 128 participant tournament would probably have had this thing going on until the 2019 tournament, if there is one. One thing we wanted to make sure of is that we didn't end up with somebody getting desperately unlucky with 11 or 12 or, heaven forbid, 15 blue balls and have the race turn solely on that. So,
yeah, pretty sensible decision there, in my opinion.
But it is worth pointing out that pretty much all of Josh's race times have been better than all of BluntBunny's race times. So throughout this tournament, Josh has been executing at a higher level. So it is definitely within the realm of possibility for him to make up all or more of that difference.
Yeah, definitely possible. All right, coming into the first Dark World dungeon here, we're going to see the difficulty of the game increase pretty significantly. Not just in the speed run strategies that they have to execute, but the enemies are going to be more challenging. They're going to be doing more damage. And the boss of this dungeon is particularly hazardous.
Yes. You also start to see a lot of use of, I think Palace of Darkness and Skull are particularly big on this, but use of the mirror as a method of transportation.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, Blunt placing his placing Link a little bit too low and getting hit by the bomb damage as he fell.
Yeah, that's not too critical. It would have been worse if he actually got knocked back by the bomb and had to travel more to fall down the hole afterward, but there are enough heart pickups in this dungeon that he's going to be able to get up to full hearts when he needs to later, assuming that nothing else goes wrong. This dungeon does have another bomb jump, probably the most difficult in the run, where they have to place themselves on 2 pixel-perfect Y coordinates. They got to place the bomb on one, and they got to put the player sprite on the other in order to get to the hammer early. They will have the opportunity to use menu buffers to make it a little bit more safe, a little bit easier, but of course, with every menu buffer, they do lose time.
Yeah, 2 of them are expected, 1 to menu to the bombs and 1 to menu back to the mirror. But beyond that,
I think it is also worth noting that BluntBunny has written the definitive hammer jump tutorial, so shouldn't see too much trouble from him.
Yeah, just a couple of extra buffers on his side. It looked like 4 buffers. The 2 forced ones and 2 extra. Oh, Josh getting that fairy drop though, so that's what we were talking about. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, so in a while, in like 40 or 50 minutes, we're gonna see that come into play. All right, coming into the latter part of Palace of Darkness, BluntBunny is going to pick up 2 hearts to get back up to full hearts. Not just for safety, but also for the sword beams. Again, he's going to be able to use the sword beams to hit a couple switches, which will prevent him from having to waste any ammunition, his arrows, or having to menu a couple extra times.
Yep, nice sexy statue from Blunt. Just a little frame saver to push that statue in the manner quickest as possible.
Quite fast. Oh man, another 10 arrow drop. These guys are been healthy on arrows. Let's see if Josh is able to get a good arrow drop here as well.
Josh also with the sexy statue. Very nice. Going into the pod mimics. These mimics rooms are some of the hardest to opt. Ooh! That is unlike Josh to mess up the pod mimics. That is an unforced error that I don't know that I've ever seen him do.
Yeah. Well, no drops there. He's going to be down to 4 while BluntBunny's had 19 arrows. I mean, that's not a significant difference. We're only talking a few seconds, but it is a very nice comfort at the very least for BluntBunny. Boss of this dungeon is going to be the Helmasaur King. This guy does 2 hearts worth of damage. So picking up the Sanctuary Heart puts them over an interval where they can take an additional hit from him. This is one of the most significant times to have the Sanctuary Heart. 7 hearts compared to 6 makes you a lot safer.
Alright. Blunt choosing to approach the Helmasaur fight without his sword out. It allows him to get the hammers off quicker, but does add a little bit of danger to the fight.
Yeah, the sword offers a little bit of safety, but not having that offers a little more mobility. Oh, and great second phase Hammers on the second phase are very precise. It is a little easier when Helmasaur is standing still and not shooting a fireball, but being able to capitalize on that good situation is still something that takes a lot of skill.
Josh with a very good phase 1 and a very good phase 2. That's about as good a Helmasaur fight as you're going to see out of Josh. Very well done. 3 hammers, quick spin, and that is all for Helma.
Yeah, no trouble for either player on one of the most hazardous bosses, I think, of the whole run. I should say potentially hazardous. I mean, it does have some variability that's very significant, but again, being able to capitalize on those good situations prevents him from having another opportunity to give you trouble.
Yeah. Helmasaur King, by the way, not to be confused with Helpasaur King. If you have any questions about Link to the Past, there is a good chance that Helpasaur might be able to help you out. Feel free to take a look at the command list there from the bot. A lot of useful information about some of the terms that you're going to hear us use. And that bot was written by one of the other tourney administrators, Greenham, who has put in a ton of work basically automating a bunch of stuff that I was stupidly going to try to do on pen and paper. So big shout outs to Greenham for his work on the bot and his work on this tournament.
Yeah, a lot of really impressive stuff from him there. Automation, man, it's the future.
That's what they say.
All right, coming out of Palace of Darkness, these players are making their way from the first dungeon in the intended dungeon order to the fourth, the Gargoyle's Domain, but they're going to run a little errand on the way. They're going to pick up the flute along the way. Flute will speed up some overworld travel.
You're also going to see the second application of item dashing here, a more obvious one with the hammer. Doing the item dash with the hammer just lets you mow down that row of pegs instead of having to stop and hammer each individually. That is, again, a Japanese 1.0 exclusive glitch.
Yeah, one of the most impressive looking applications of it. In fact, a lot of people want to play on the 1.0 version specifically so that they can do that screen that way.
I think one of the greatest travesties is that the shovel dash does not have an application.
Yeah, actually, Desirect, when he made the original A Link to the Past randomizer, said he wanted to build it on the Japanese 1.0 ROM specifically so that it would have item dash. That was the one reason that he made that decision originally.
A solid choice. Now, we have another spin speed here from Blunt. He's going to use a spin speed here to get past the fastest guard in Hyrule, Usain Bolt. You saw him quickly, but Blunt ran right on past him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing. I don't know if there's multiple guards that run at that speed, but this particular guard has exceptional closing speed, and if you try to just walk past him, he will just destroy you.
You know what it is the guard's movement speed on diagonals increases at a higher rate compared to his lateral movement than the player speed does. So while you can outrun him walking laterally, he will actually outrun you walking diagonally. And since the movement on that screen is primarily diagonal, yeah, he'll just catch right up to you. You can't get away from him. And it's tight movement too.
Blunt going for one of those optional spin speed right there that only saves a handful of frames, but he did not execute it quite correctly, so he lost those frames and then some, having to exit and re-enter the stairs.
Yeah, this game runs at 60 frames per second, and I believe that one saves 10 or less. So you gotta make less than 1/6 of a second of errors when trying to execute that to actually save time.
Yep. Yeah, it might sound strange, you know, when you're talking about a game the length of Link to the Past to refer to things in frames or intervals of 1/60th of a second, but those, you know, there's approximately 527 screens, I think, is the count. There might be less after Meyer glitch, but, you know, every room has an opportunity to save time or lose time. And all those little frame saves or losses really add up. And it's the difference between runners the caliber of Blunt and Josh and runners the caliber of, well, everyone else.
Yeah, pretty much. It is also why we see such minor lead changes, you know, in the first couple of dungeons when we're watching two good players side to side, you know, just very, very tiny things that you might not see if you watch one player, you know, playing solo. But when you're watching them side by side with another player, you really can see the variability that's so minor, but really matters.
Yep. But here in Thieves Town, we are going to see one of the more infamous rooms in the NMG room, in the NMG run coming up here for Blunt. It is pretty well named the Hellway. because, well, it is both of those things. Blunt adjusting to get a good pixel for a clean dash up. Did not get the God Pixel on his first try, but was able to buffer over to it and got through the hellway unscathed.
Yeah, not getting blocked by any enemies on the way out. That's out of your control, but nice when it goes in your favor.
Yep, see how Josh does? Oh, not great enemy RNG there.
Giving him a little trouble. Getting through okay.
Yep. Blunt reading those goblins pretty well in the bombable floor room. Is able to cleanly place the bomb and then walk through the goblins and then pick the bomb up without taking damage. Those little guys will hit you for 2 hearts.
Yeah, they're surprisingly strong.
And Josh, with the mistake on the menu, accidentally menuing the hammer, actually kind of messed up his timing through the room, and I think he had to stop and slash one of the goblins out of the way to avoid that 2 hearts of damage.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things top players in this game can learn is there's a lot of enemy RNG, and we try to mitigate it, but it's not always just purely reacting. Sometimes we know, there's kind of what we call a finite set of patterns and a very specific reaction to each pattern. And we do that by learning, the AI of the enemies, sometimes just by studying them and examining them, and sometimes actually by looking into the code of the game to see exactly how they behave so we can learn their patterns more precisely.
Yep. Blunt has picked up his maiden, and now Josh is making his way through the jail cell. Ooh! Oh! That's an interesting conveyor room for Blunt. He both dashed into the red berry and then fell off the bridge. So that allows Josh to make up a little bit of time here.
Yeah, he got really kind of awkward timing with his movement there to get shocked by that second one. There are kind of some ways to prevent that from happening, or at least significantly reduce the risk. But touching him and getting knocked off was purely a movement error at the end there.
Yeah. But we're now here in the blind fight. Blind has a very reactable AI. If you do the same thing every time, he'll do the same thing. So we're going to follow a pattern invented by a Link to the Past runner named Cypher, who you probably also know from his recent exploits in Mega Man 2. But following the pattern that he devised, we're able to get in and out of the blind fight as quickly as possible without taking any damage.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of practice to get used to. Once you're used to it, it's just a clean, consistent fight almost every time, especially for players like these two.
Yep. But I think it's pretty clear to see that despite the discrepancy in blue balls, where 5-1, which is approximately 30 seconds different, we are not 30 seconds apart. So Josh has done a pretty good job of closing the gap, at least a little bit, from Pod and Thieves.
Yeah, for sure. He was a little bit ahead, I think, going into Ag. So that discrepancy in blue balls isn't the entire difference that they had, but it is true that he has made up a noticeable amount of time since then.
Yep. So one thing that if you've only played the game casually, you might notice is that they did do Dungeon 4 second, and the reason we do that is for purposes of getting the Tempered Sword as quickly as possible. So by getting the Dungeon 4 item, the Titan's Mitts, we're able to come down here and rescue the world's most useless frog, BluntBunny, just pressing A.
Nice. Yeah, you're able to talk to that frog from pretty far away and from a tile to the diagonal. The trick there is not, we call the trick just press A, but the trick is actually to press left and A at the same time. That will increase the distance that you can talk to him pretty significantly.
Yeah, if you can't read Japanese, what Link is actually saying there is, hey, you're a frog, why don't you just jump down and save yourself?
Yeah. But no time for logic here. This is a video game.
But because we got that Tempered Sword and we're able to rescue the frog, or because we got the Titan's Mitts and are able to rescue the frog, we can get the Tempered Sword quickly, which makes a lot of, specifically the bosses in Dungeons 2 and 3, Argus and Mothula, a lot easier. And the blind fight is the same regardless of what sword you have. So going straight to Thieves Town, getting Tempered Sword quickly, just makes the remainder of the run a lot simpler.
Yeah, you can get that flute along the way that immediately saves travel time as soon as you get it. In addition to the tempered sword, they're also going to pick up the remainder of the rubies that they need for this route. You saw them get 300 just a moment ago, and they'll be getting 300 more.
Fence dash.
Yeah, BluntBunny got the fence dash. That is it is an important trick. I mean, it is a respectable time save compared to taking that dash safely, but it is pretty famous as a swag strat. Josh getting it as well.
And we are now on to one of my favorite overworld segments, the Skullwoods overworld. Has some really interesting mechanics that aren't necessarily able to be explained quickly here, such as being able to cancel a dash with up. But Skull is a strange dungeon in that we're going to skip most of it. We're going to just go into the bare minimum of rooms that we need to. But it does have an element of danger where a lot of these enemies hit hard, like these Gibdos will do 2 hearts of damage. And if you take too much damage and you die in the overworld, you get sent all the way back to the pyramid, and you just lose a day, like a lot of time. Josh,
horrible.
Josh, luckily getting the stuck mummy here, which makes the room a little bit easier.
Yeah, both players had a little trouble grabbing and pulling that statue, losing a little time, but a similar amount of time, at least on that part of the room.
Yep.
They have the Skullwoods bomb jump coming up, pretty much the same tech as the Tower of Hera bomb jump. Very easy. For these players, they're just going to bonk to make it even easier.
Yep, and then they're going to go ahead and fall in a hole to put themselves back at the door, not just to get out of the room quicker, but the iframes from the fall continue to the overworld, and they let you walk right past one of the ropas on the outside.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that there is some overworld kind of mixed into the dungeon in this segment.
Yeah, it certainly, when the first time you sit down and play this game, it is easy to get lost in Skull for an hour or more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was usually doing Skullwoods very late in my playthrough. I'd get like every item. I'd get like the fire rod, and then I'd just go do everything else and then come back because it was so frustrating for me for some reason.
But Skull does have some interesting interesting rooms, I should say. One of which coming up here for Blunt is the Mummy Hellway.
Yeah. I'm going to try to light these torches and get through it as fast as possible by going through the mummies and just kind of having them all around them while they're doing their movements and actions. It can be very risky. A very small mistake can cost you a lot of hearts and a lot of time.
Josh taking a safer approach to it, but getting through still quickly.
Oh, yeah. Nice to see some variation there.
And then they're going to try to hit this mummy into the spike to kill it. Meanwhile, Blunt is in the Mothula fight. Going to try to get 2 quick... very nice fight from Blunt. It's over before you can describe it.
You know, you can usually tell at the beginning of a fight if it's going to be good. If you get that double hit on the dash, the second hit with good RNG, and BluntBunny is one of the best at getting those poke dashes. Josh, however, wrote the tutorial on Mothula, getting a little bit worse of a pattern at the beginning, having a little trouble cleaning it up, but getting it eventually in the end there.
Yeah. Josh likes to say that you rank a moth fight by how many spikes moved. So I see for Josh that 5 spikes moved. So on his grading scale, this fight was only a 5 out of 10. And
oh, man.
I'm sorry, Josh. That's an F.
I bet on his criticism of himself, though, it's probably even a lower score. So in these cutscenes, as they're mashing through the text, I mean, text mashing is kind of it's a part of the game you don't want to take for granted, though it's not really very interesting to watch. But after these cutscenes happen, the time it takes for the hearts and the magic to refill is potentially real time loss. Every heart taking 10 seconds to fill, and the magic, or I'm sorry, 10 frames to fill, and the magic taking 1 frame per unit, where the full bar is 128. So here the magic will take longer, so the hearts lost doesn't really matter either way.
Interesting thing that you may have just heard Blunt play the flute. What he's actually doing is he's setting up something called the altitude variable, which we'll talk. Ooh, swag block for Blunt, very nice.
That's risky. You do not want to lose a half a heart here.
So the altitude variable is something that was recently discovered. Basically, it has to do with items that are kind of emulating a 3-dimensional space, entering and leaving the screen. And the duck is one of the things that uses the altitude variable, and calling the flute immediately sets that altitude variable to 0. So he called it in a position that he knew the duck couldn't come. Ooh, taking that half-heart damage that he avoided with the swag block. So he's going to play that flute there. It sets the altitude variable, and he's going to then use that And then having to throw a second item, that's another unforced error.
You did get a heart refill, though, so that's good.
But we're going to use that in the first room of ice, because for whatever reason, the fire rod uses that altitude variable, and by setting it to 0, it makes the first fire rod shot in ice a lot easier to hit.
Yeah, as a great example of sloppy coding, there are variables that are written, but then they're never unset or set back to 0 afterwards, and then for some reason another item will read them. It's really kind of confusing. But there's sort of an array of scratched RAM that's used just for random variables. Some things write it and some things read it. We're going to write it and then read it with something else. So we're going to write it with the flute and then we're going to read it with the fire rod. And that's going to affect the fire rod splash damage.
Yep. Yeah, basically, when you shoot the fire rod, it takes the position of the fire rod, subtracts 8 to get to the center of the fire rod sprite, and then also subtracts the altitude variable to figure out how far away the splash damage should be. And if you leave the altitude not cleaned up, that splash damage can be in just a random distance away from the actual fire rod, which we're going to actually do on purpose and abuse and mire. But by setting it to 0, it lets us kill this first freezer in Ice 1 a lot easier and saves a whole 4 frames over the old trap.
Up to 4 frames.
Up to 4.
Yeah, it's really hard to see it actually here. It's just that the fire effect you'll see lingers until the freezer spawns, and as soon as the freezer is out of that wall, it's going to kill it. Whereas previously we just had to fire it a little bit later in order to kill it. Coming up right here for BluntBunny.
Yeah, Blunt having some trouble getting into the warp while Josh was able to swim right into it. So a little bit more time made up. Oof. Every time I see that third jelly killed, I kind of...
Yeah, there's a small risk of a frame-perfect glitch, a bad glitch in this case, that can cause the sprites in this dungeon to be displaced and can prevent you from being able to progress. You have to use the mirror to reset the dungeon in order to fix that glitch. Both these players are aware of it and should be able to prevent it if they realize that it has a potential of happening.
And if they both should also recognize it quickly when it happens and immediately mirror out, so...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Blunt... Okay, he was able to pick that bomb up and get it thrown.
Yeah, pretty close there.
And we're coming up on the next bomb jump. The Ice Palace bomb jump is one of, in my opinion, it's one of the easier ones in that you actually have the opportunity to use menu buffers again to get into position, but it's a lot more forgiving. But it saves the most time. I think it probably saves a few minutes based off of against doing the dungeon naturally.
Yeah, I think it is actually in the minutes. Oh, and BluntBunny using the hammer to kind of buffer his movement there. By hitting the D-pad and then using an item, you're able to stop your movement very quickly in order to get very small, precise movements if you need to do that. Josh using his sword instead. We're both getting by without any additional menu buffers, even though it took a different amount of time for them to get that pixel. Because you have to wait for the bomb to explode anyway, the total amount of time for the bomb jump is exactly the same. Although BluntBunny did take a little more time to set the bomb, so we did have a small time loss from that.
And then here in this room that we call the Lonely Fire Bar with the staircase and the Lonely Fire Bar, you're going to see an interesting use of the ice mechanics and quick momentum shifts from the hammer to get from one side of the room to the other and getting aligned with the staircase, which is pretty difficult to do in itself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, ice physics are pretty tricky. Once you know a few fundamental details, though, you can kind of take advantage of them to get fast movement like that. And here we have Cold Stare, very tough boss, very strong boss. He'll hit you for 4 hearts of damage, and the ice falling from the sky will hit you for 2. You're going to try to do a quick kill, 8 shots to the ice to melt it, spin attack, and then some variation of the quick kill we'll see. Single poke dash, double spin, and BluntBunny needs 1 slash, so he did take damage. He's still able to get that spin without taking a huge amount of damage or slowing down too much. Josh can do his spin as well. Do 2 poke dashes. He did not wait long enough to charge his spin before he released his sword, which means he has to chase these guys down to kill him. A few slashes each. It's going to be a pretty sizable time loss, but I don't think there's going to be any real risk of dying or anything for him now.
Yeah. Yeah, the dungeon item for Ice Palace is the blue mail, so you're expected to have your damage halved, but obviously it's really slow to go out of your way to get the blue mail. We skip it with the bomb jump, we skip the big key, the big chest, and a whole mess of other things. So those big cold stare puffs will hit you for 4 hearts of damage and the falling ice for 2. But
yeah, and in later dungeons, there's just going to be regular enemies in the dungeon that hit for up to 4 hearts of damage. So game gets pretty scary pretty soon without that armor upgrade. However, before we go to those scary dungeons, they're going to start at Swamp Palace, jumping from dungeon 5 to 2 in the intended dungeon order.
Yep.
So the threat level of the enemies does go down here.
Yep. 5435 sword up for Blunt. And 53 for Josh. So it is approximately 18 seconds separating the runners at this point.
Yeah, that is not an insurmountable gap at this point still. The hardest parts of the game and the biggest potentials for disparity in their performance will be coming up later in the run. Swamp Palace, while not a very risky dungeon as far as the strength of the enemies or the damage that you're going to take is concerned, is a very difficult dungeon. It's one of the ones that really exemplifies the significance of just general enemy movement RNG. It's going to be very critical in many rooms. And there's rooms you have to go through. I think up to 4 times you have to go through one room, and every time there's a potential for bad RNG to affect your speed there.
Yep. Real quick, this is the last of our Japanese 1.0 exclusive glitches. This mirror block erase, when you push a block, it transitions from being an item to a sprite, and by mirroring during that state in a room where the mirror does nothing, for whatever reason, it despawns the sprite that you're pushing. So we're able to use that. A nice anti-fairy skip for Josh. We're able to use that to just push that block, despawn it, and walk right on past it.
Yeah, anti-fairy skip is one of those things that's pretty hard to notice if you're not looking for it, but it is... For people who are experienced players or watchers of the game, we do know that is that's a pretty high swag point move there.
Yep. Yeah. So, as you said, we're back here in Dungeon 2. There's not a whole lot of risk of dying in this dungeon. Of course, I say that, but most of us have had it happen at least once, and we usually think that there's no reason that it should have happened. But one thing that it is easy to do is just lose time in a lot of these rooms. So between execution, you're going to see that 18-second gap either widen or shrink. But then when we get to the boss, you're going to see both of these runners go for a strat on the boss that could save up to 7 seconds. If one of them gets it and the other one doesn't, that will have a pretty significant effect on the gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Very difficult strategy to pull off. There are some cute technical details in this dungeon. Killing enemies in this room that Blunt is leaving and Josh is entering will actually reduce lag when they refill the water in the following room that BluntBunny is entering now. It's really subtle. You really can't see it happening at all, but that does affect the way that they do that room. They specifically go through it in a way that will cause them to kill more enemies. Maybe slightly slower way to execute that room, but the time saved from the lag reduction actually makes it worth it.
Yep. Yeah, all these enemies jumping in the way or getting out of the way, just the little things that you can do. Little things like that berry getting in the way and, blocking the sword beams that he was trying to use to hit the switch. Just one of the 1,000 paper cuts that you can take in this dungeon.
Oh, yeah.
But here in this dungeon, we're going to get one of the most intriguing items from a speedrun perspective, the hook shot, which has a lot of uses either in giving iframes or activating super speed, and an interesting application of it that you'll see shortly after picking it up using the hook dash glitch state that we'll point out.
Yeah, very cool item. It does affect movement a little bit. There are plenty of applications or situations where using the hookshot for movement would be optimal. And luckily, a few of those places you already happen to have it equipped because the optimization of it is not really significant enough for an extra menu. But we will see it be used just as a movement optimization quite a few times.
You're going to see Blunt move in a very specific way here to line himself up with this pot so he can hook straight across twice, pick up this key, and...
Very geometric.
Yes.
Yeah, and what you mentioned earlier in this following room is going to do a hook dash. That's going to put him in the super speed glitch state that we mentioned earlier. And what's interesting about that is when you're in that glitch state, you can't grab the statue. You can't actually grab sprites at all, or interactive sprites like that. But you can grab the pot. If you're not in that state and you try to lift up that pot, you'll just grab the statue. So by activating that glitch, the game just happens to prioritize the pot. You can pick it up easily first try.
Yeah, Josh looked like he did not get the glitch state. At least I couldn't tell that I didn't see the weird walking animation. It looked like he had to mash A few times to pick up the pot.
Yeah, I think it determines whether or not it works is how quickly you release and then repress the A button. So when in doubt, just do the hover movement, and you should get it real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, this dungeon has a lot of potential arrow drops or arrow pickups from pots and a couple of bombs. They're both good on bombs. In fact, they both have too many. Blunt being good enough on arrows hasn't picked any up. We're going to see Josh pick up a little extra there.
Blunt dropping the 0 cycle, so that is an opportunity right there.
Yeah, Josh can make up potentially 6 seconds there. Looks like Blunt should still be able to get a 1 cycle with 0 movements. Actually, might get a single movement because he's having trouble getting that last puff. Yeah, 1 cycle, 1 movement. Quick kill in the second phase with the fire rod is successful.
All right, let's see what Josh does here. If he gets the 0 cycle, oh, and Josh drops it too.
That's a shame. Yeah, going for an easy cleanup instead of trying to get back into the glitch state to continue the 0 cycle strategy. At this point, it is much better just to go for an easy cleanup to get the consistent 1 cycle. And his second phase quick kill is also successful.
Yep.
All right, this is the longest cutscene in the whole game. Great time to tire out your hands before a significant increase in difficulty on the next dungeon.
Yep. Coming up is Misery Mire, but first there's going to be a brief shopping trip, and Misery Mire is also home to the latest and greatest in time-save tech here in Link to the Past. Actually, the biggest time save that's been found in years. Since True Rupees, as a matter of fact. And it is something that we are calling the Spooky Action Glitch, named by poor little Pankus, who did a significant amount of the work into developing both the knowledge and application behind it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a silly name, but he did so much work that he really deserves to get to name it whatever he wants, honestly.
Yeah, I kind of thought he would name it Fred, but... went with Spooky Action Glitch.
Spooky action. About as much sense.
Spooky action at a distance, to be specific.
Yeah.
But quickly on this shopping trip, they're going to go back up to Death Mountain and pick up the Ether Medallion, which is needed to unlock Misery Mire. And then they're going to head on over and pick up the Ice Rod. And as soon as they land at Flute Point 6 in front of Misery Mire is when the setup of the glitch takes place. So we mentioned earlier about the altitude variable and the flute. What you're going to want to pay attention to when they land at Flute Spot 6 is they used to just pick up the rock from the left, get onto the warp, and go. They're going to actually take movement to put them below the rock, which causes the duck to leave the screen at a certain position, which leaves the altitude variable at a desirable state. And we're going to use that later, along with some data swapping with the Cane of Samaria to allow us to fire out an item in the next room.
Yeah.
3 times.
It sounds really complicated, and from a technical standpoint it is, but the execution of it is fairly simple. It's just a specific sequence of events that they have to perform. So BluntBunny is going to walk below this rock. That just causes the bird to stay on the screen a little bit longer. Make sure that variable in a specific RAM spot happens to be where it wants to be. And the only thing they have to do now is make sure they don't accidentally overwrite that. And we'll see how they do that a little bit later.
One thing to note, though, is there is a little bit that goes into it as to how far right you walk. And Blunt walked pretty far right below that rock before turning back. So his altitude variable may be a little bit different than what he expects. Now, he does have bombs, so he can still proceed through the dungeon even if the glitch does go awry. But it's a pretty big time save executing the glitch properly. We'll have to see.
Yeah, it might be a teeny bit off. But we're going to have to find out in a while from now to see what happens. Both players coming into this dungeon at full hearts means they will be able to attempt this quick kill, or this quick strat that BluntBunny did in the room that Josh will be entering momentarily. Not only are sword beams good for strategies like this, but having full hearts in this dungeon is very nice. It's a very hazardous dungeon. There are enemies in here that do 4 hearts of damage. The boss also does 4 hearts.
Josh doing the even faster quick kill, getting the Popo below the Beamos.
Yeah, killing that Popo early allows them to prevent potential bad RNG having to chase that guy down, but it also does make the execution a lot tighter.
Yeah, for anybody that's just joining us, by the way, this is the Link to the Past No Major Glitches Tournament Finals. First game in a best-of-3 series between JoshRTA and BluntBunny. The remaining 2 out of a tournament of 128 competitors. I'm Scrivo. I'm joined by Flash Toby Crackett, and we have a pretty tight race going on right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the 4th major NMG tournament that we've had. Neither of these players have seen a final before. In the last tournament in 2016, BluntBunny made it to the top 6. That was a double elimination bracket, which is why we can have a number like 6, where he was eliminated in an unfortunate race that he lost by only 2 seconds to poor little Pinkus, who we were just talking about.
Yep. So Josh is going to go ahead and proceed through, Josh and Blunt are going to proceed through the rest of Misery Mire, and as soon as we get into the basement, the spooky action will begin.
Yeah. Dungeon item here is the Cane of Samaria. I do enjoy this item. I think from a combat perspective, it has a lot of interesting applications. If you're just trying to have fun, see how many bosses you can kill with just the Cane of Samaria. I promise you'll have tons of fun doing that.
Yeah, it's also one of the more broken items once you start getting into glitch runs. Basically, it has a lot of applications that make it a very interesting addition to the arsenal that unfortunately has not reappeared in any later addition to the Zelda franchise.
I think it was in one of the handheld games. Oracle of something.
So here, what you're going to see is BluntBunny's going to pick up the skull, and then he's going to kick up dust before placing down the Samaria block, and that keeps the altitude variable in the right slot, allowing us to use it with the fire rod. So you're going to then see him, he's going to fire rod this spike. And then you heard the switch go. The switch is 1 screen up. The displaced area of effect hits that, then Blunt is going to fire rod here. This hits the switch 1 screen up, and now he's going to dash north and fire rod the left side of the right torch, and that hits the switch at the top of the screen. Real quick, 12 seconds saved, very well executed.
Yeah, completely successful for him there. We were a little bit worried. Nothing to be worried about, though. Yeah. Josh is executing the same thing. Let's see how well it goes for him while BluntBunny's in the Vitreous fight.
Okay.
Okay.
Blunt accidentally, he tried to re-slash to get a spin to get back into the goo, but one of the eyes flew down, intercepted the slash, which wouldn't allow him to charge it, and kind of put him in no man's land there, but he was able to safely get through. Meanwhile, Josh with a textbook Vitreous fight and a 0 cycle.
Yeah, the fight definitely relies on specific timings. It's very rhythmic, and once that rhythm gets thrown off, it's real easy for it to go bad real fast. I mean, BluntBunny has a lot of experience, and recovery is something that he has probably a lot of experience doing as well. Having played in a lot of races and a lot of marathons in his experience, he has to know how to recover. Single lightning for him and 0 for Josh is a few seconds more saved for Josh in that fight.
Yep.
After this, they'll be going to the Turtle Rock, the last of the crystal holding dungeons before they go to Ganon's Tower.
Yep.
This is where we will see that Josh will not be likely to get a fairy drop, and BluntBunny will be very likely to get one early on from a pokey enemy.
Yep. Blunt landing on flute point 1 at 108.50. I didn't catch sword up.
Oh, yeah, we'll see what their time differential is here.
Still 18 seconds.
Ah, man. Little time saves and little time losses ended up being pretty well balanced throughout. Josh had really good insight on those squirrels there. It looked like he might have messed up a little bit, but a lot of players might have panicked there and gotten themselves stuck, but he would rather take a heart of damage than lose 10 seconds getting squirrel blocked.
Yep. Both racers making their way up to Turtle Rock, solving the hottest peg puzzle since Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, gotta love trial and error puzzles.
And you're going to see another, not quite visible, but still there, application of the super speed glitch. They're going to do an item dash with the medallion to light the Quake here. They're going to do it high enough that it hits the Quake medallion, but not so low that they're on the stairs. But it does put them in the super speed glitch state, which lets them get a free quick hop when they walk down to the ledge.
Yeah, it is possible to get the speed here without, I mean, and save time. BluntBunny didn't do it. I don't know if Josh goes for it. You kind of have to walk off the stairs and then walk back down to touch them for at least one frame.
Yeah. I don't see too many people go for it.
It's a bigger time save than people think. A lot of times when people talk about the number of frames it saves, they're talking about the old number before it was optimized by an old retired player named Super Scudge, actually. I figured that one out.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, I've heard of him too.
Yeah. It was unfortunate, the incident between him and Rita Repulsa.
Yeah. The green candle is almost burnt out. We'll have to see what happens after the next episode. BluntBunny took it some intentional damage there. These rollers do a lot of damage, 3 full hearts, but he does have that fairy coming up, so he doesn't have to really feel too scared about that. Josh will probably do the same thing, even though he doesn't have the fairy coming up. And he already is a couple extra hearts down. He's a Death Mountain. Yeah, he'll still do that. Oh, man,
that's a unfortunate chomps pattern for Blunt.
Yeah, he'll play it safe here.
Oh, it takes 2 hits.
Well,
what is this?
Yeah, I was playing. Oh man, getting blocked by the female chain chomp.
How do you know which is the female?
It's
never mind.
Right.
Never. Okay.
That's never. How you know.
Okay. Let's move on before.
Wow. Yeah. So no fairy drop for Josh, but still coming out of the chomps room with more hearts, and definitely saving some time there, some major time.
Let's pay attention to which of the pokey RNGs that BluntBunny gets. He's had some trouble recently with the bottom left one, but he's going to get the bottom right, which is pretty much free. Just get over there and spin.
Yeah. Magic drop is pretty good to get as well. I mean, there's not a huge risk when it comes to magic routing here. Josh did get bottom left, which has a very advanced
but he
strategy.
missed the key.
Not quite getting it. I do respect him for going for that strategy. It's very difficult, very tight. You got to kill that guy without the skull interfering. You got to get that key on your dash, and you got to get the key dash. And you got to not hit by the laser, which means you have to time the dash just right. Yeah, there's a lot to it. And any one of those parts can go wrong very easily.
Unfortunately, he gave back a little bit of that time that he gained from Blunt's Chomps room.
Yeah, Blunt's going to go for a single spin on this pokey pattern. This double pokey room, there are 16 patterns, a very finite set of patterns. There are correct reactions for all of them. BluntBunny, one of the few players who actually knows all of them and actually tries for all of them. Just getting a little bit more difficult of a pattern. Shouldn't be significantly slower. One thing to note here, time spent in this room does cause the roller in the following room to continue moving. So a worse pattern may not necessarily be a time loss in the end if you have to end up waiting for that roller. Anyway.
Yeah. Now, Blunt is going to take 1 intentional heart of damage here, and coming up is going to be a trick called the laser skip. The laser skip is... I mean, it's a pretty basic trick at this level. It's not commonly messed up, but those lasers do 4 hearts of damage. And I'm not a mathematician, but Blunt has 4 hearts right now.
Yeah. Yeah, there was an opportunity.
Whoa!
I did not. Yeah, oh man, not getting that.
Wow. Wow.
Oh man. Okay.
Everything there was okay.
Dios mio. Okay, well, yeah, okay. I was going to say he's so confident with this, I don't expect anything to go wrong, but it just, oh man, Josh getting hit by the laser, had enough hearts left over not to die from it. Man, going to have only 1.5. Probably not even going to pick up the extra because it doesn't even make a difference really at this threshold. For BluntBunny, going from 4 to 5 will make a difference on the boss fight, potentially if it goes wrong.
Remember when I said laser skip isn't consequential at this level?
Oh,
and Blunt misses the ice rod shot!
Oh man, too early was it?
Yes!
The head is still in a good position, so he is able to kill it. Still menuing, good, keeping his head there, not forgetting the fundamentals of the fight in an unusual situation. Josh's fight's looking a little more traditional. No ice on the floor for him.
Wow.
Quick first phase. BluntBunny going for the quick on the second phase. Josh really dodged that head there, holding on to that spike. The second phase for BluntBunny. Did a menu to make sure his position was good. Looks good. And Josh is in a great position here too. Finish that second phase.
They are suddenly very close.
Yeah. Well, the gap closed a lot in this dungeon. Between that laser room,
they're 4 seconds apart. 4 seconds apart going into Ganon's tower.
Yeah.
The race is not over until somebody touches some triangles.
No. Wow. All right. I gotta let my heart slow down a little bit.
I'm gonna take a breath.
Yeah.
That I was not prepared for both racers to have an adventure in the laser skip bridge. Blunt almost got, he actually looked like he got damage boosted through a laser, but the thing about those lasers is you can only take damage from the tip. The trailing part of the laser, while it's there visually, does not have a hurt box to it. So he got boosted through the back half of the laser, stopping all of our hearts in the process. And then he kind of danced around some other ones, but was able to get out safely.
Yeah. Well, now that they're out of this dungeon, they can go to a dungeon that is a little difficult. Luckily, however, there's nothing that does 4 hearts of damage that they're going to be interacting with anyway. So the risk of dying, I mean, there's a lot that can go wrong, but there's no individual seriously critical part. A lot would have to go wrong for them to have a risk of dying, but the execution is so difficult.
Interesting to see Blunt facing down for this cutscene.
Yeah. Yeah, you do want to move down a little bit when this cutscene starts. It reduces time in lag. And you also want to stop the dash. So Josh was below. His positioning was good, but he didn't stop his dash, so he only saved some of the time. BluntBunny with awkward movement did save a lot of time, but lost a little bit on his movement as well.
Yep. So Ganon's Tower is a very, it is objectively the best dungeon in the game. It is, I've been calling it the final exam. You basically have been given a whole arsenal of items and weapons throughout the game, and here is your chance to show your proficiency with all of them. Starting here with the hook shot, you're going to see having to hook through. Josh going for something called spike skip, but not quite getting it. But you're going to
perfect mistake.
Yeah. You're going to see this really cool strat with the throwing the boomerang and then hooking over the pegs. And then we talked earlier about some of the interesting uses of the hookshot. Here in this particular room, you're going to see hookshot for iframes. And then you actually saw BluntBunny hooking through the block while pushing it to move himself a little bit closer during that animation. So...
yeah. And Josh pushing the block from the other side, actually, that puts him a little bit closer to the chest when it spawns. It's a slightly faster way to do the room. We may see a lot of very minor variance between these two players in all these rooms. Every room has, you know, so many little details to them. Some players are better at rooms than others. Some do harder or easier strategies, more consistent ones. Some of them just happen to have a tiny bit of knowledge that saves them a couple frames that the other one might not quite have figured out. Just the, I mean, there's frames and there's seconds, you know, throughout this whole dungeon.
Yep. And the big gimmick of Ganon's Tower is that you're going to refight all of the Light World bosses, starting with Armos. All of them have a bit of a twist. In this case, Armos is on ice.
Yes, they're going to go for a kind of a similar idea of a quick kill as they did on the first Armos fight. They're going to damage one of them partially and then finish it off last to avoid getting the red Armos aggro at the end. Good fight from Blunt, and looks like Josh, yeah, as well. Both need arrows before they go back upstairs. Yep. And they'll get them right here after the big key.
Very important for our runners to menu away from the mirror. Please menu away from the mirror. Yeah,
Josh was on, or I'm sorry, BluntBunny actually was on a very good pace run and accidentally used the mirror when he meant to use the arrows and the mimics in the following room. And
speaking of arrows. Speaking of mimics, these mimics rooms are some of the hardest to optimize and to do fast.
Yeah, I really think they are the hardest.
And you're going to see two very different strats from them. Oh, Josh. Okay. It is very easy to go from full hearts.
Yeah. Oh, man. He was staring that boy down, man. Yeah, a little sketchy, but I mean, I mean that room can go so much wrong. To see a recovery like that, I mean, that was a good recovery.
Yeah, and only down 5 hearts. I say only. You know, it's very easy to get down to all hearts in that room.
I mean, really, it's like a minimum of 2 or 3. Like, you have to lose 3 on purpose, and then you can maybe pick up 1 lucky from a drop. BluntBunny losing 2 more there by getting hit by a Zazik. Josh, usually you only need 1 arrow there, but having 1 saving a little time there.
Yeah, he used all of his arrows in the Mimic's room, didn't have any left over for Gauntlet, kind of cost him here.
BluntBunny doing a backup strategy that he kind of invented, using the Fire Rod in the 3rd room of the Gauntlet there. Josh getting a little bit better of a pattern, but oh man. Yeah, a small error of execution. I also see some Fire Rod splash damage being used on a Staff Host in the last room of the Gauntlet here.
Blunt getting a good pattern on Landmo 2, and gets the 1 cycle. Very nice. Josh going in now, hoping to keep that first Landmo going to the right. Is able to Fire Rod, quick kill, and 1 cycle Landmo 2 for Josh.
Yeah, those patterns can be pretty variable, but most of them are manageable if you're able to react fast enough.
Yep, and then now some interesting use of the Cane of Samaria, both here in Wiz 1 from Josh, Wiz 2 from Blunt.
Yeah, practically what the Cane of Samaria is designed for, in my opinion. They're going to get very low on magic here, but shouldn't have any significant risk of running out if they execute these rooms correctly. 2 torch rooms in a row. Using the lamp for the first one because of how little they have. Getting just enough to use the Fire Rod at the end.
Yep. Right top, left bottom. Might see a little bit of torch dash on the left torch. Yep, saw it there from Josh.
Yeah, good execution from him there. Fire Rod only on the 2nd torch room. Gonna save you a menu at least.
Yep. Blunt tried for the double under, did not able to pull it off. Hit one of the sparks, so he had to fire a 5th Fire Rod shot. Josh going for the under over, a little bit safer, a little bit slower, but
yeah, but he didn't mess it up.
So. He didn't mess it up. All right, and we're
this chest is good to get because by doing this strategy, you automatically get 1 heart and a full magic pickup. Moment 2, the refight that I would say is a little bit easier because your sword is so much stronger. Slash and a spin, finishing him quick, easy for Josh. I mean for Blunt, and for Josh. Yep. I was just predicting what he was going to do. And
then we're on to the Helma Hellway here. Gonna wait for those bumpers to clear.
Yeah. But there's a pretty clean way to time this dash to get through easily. There are a couple of variations of strategies. Joe DeMille does a pretty unique one here. And there is ACM does another one as well. And there's an old Cypher strat that might be a little bit faster.
Yep, so we're on to Aga 2. Oh, okay, Blunt with a double there to start with.
That could have been a triple in that first phase there. RNG on this 2nd phase isn't great depending on the timings. And the blue ball.
Josh with a triple.
Yeah, Josh getting a triple there. Kind of a rough pattern.
Oh!
You know what? He didn't react to that fast enough. His positioning was good, but from that position, he would have needed to either been facing up before he slashed at the bottom of the room, or he would have had to have a spin charge. I think he was just a little slow, had a little bit of indecision, and that caused him to not be able to handle that pattern as well. Fortunately, taking an extra cycle there as a result of that, allowing BluntBunny to kind of maintain his lead coming out of that fight.
12 seconds separate the runners going into the Ganon fight. BluntBunny is going to drop in first. We have a 4-cycle fight. The first thing that you need to do is get 12 slashes worth of damage. You're going to get 1 slash in, a text box, get 2 more, and try to get a double spin off the trident. Blunt gets the double trident spin, gets a good position on the second half of phase 1, gets a double spin against the wall, a slash, and then another double spin to start phase 2. Missed one of the ring dashes though, so he's got to make sure he gets all 12 of his phase 2 hits here. I think he did. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I think he was able to. You are able to get more than 12, so if there's a small mistake, you can usually recover just fine. Josh getting the same pattern, but doing a different strategy here, staying outside of the bat circle.
Here's some warps for Blunt. That's going to give Josh an opportunity to catch up if that keeps happening.
Yeah, these are 2-second coin flips each. Gonna be the equalizer.
Yeah, that equaled it up. They're tied. They're tied right now.
Yeah, 1 more hit. They each need a 4th hit, and then they're going to try to get a single spin, kind of an early hit on the
phase 4.
Blunt turned in blue, so he did not get his free hit at the beginning of the 4th phase, and I think Josh was able to get the double hit, so it actually puts him a little bit ahead going into the 4th phase. There's a couple extra hits. They're going to try to get 3 hits every time they light this torch, Any missed one is a big deal at this point. Any non-triple. I mean, these guys are both really good, but I imagine, I don't know if they're paying attention to the race, but if they are, their nerves are probably on fire.
This is as close a race as you're going to see at this level.
Yeah. Oh, man. I don't even want to make a call here.
I'm not even counting. I'm just watching to see which one explodes first. Both of the runners are executing very well.
I'm not seeing any mistakes on this face from either player.
Josh pulls it off
a couple seconds.
at the last second by 2 spins, it looks like.
Oh, man.
Wow, the blue Ganon is the difference, and snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. JoshRTA comes away with the victory in the first match here in the finals, with his time of 1:25.06, an official Speed Racing TV time of the same. BluntBunny with a 1:25.12 on his timer, 1:25.14 on the official timer. Folks, you showed up for a good race, and you got it.
I mean, I gotta say, Josh really deserved that win. I mean, he did get worse RNG when Aghanim, and that put him behind. But I mean, he was able to close that gap so much by the time they got into Ganon. I mean, throw out Ganon's tower, fell behind a little bit right at the end there. Was able to bring it back in that fight.
That was spectacular. We're going to try to get our runners in here for a post-race conversation, but that, you know, if that was spectacular. I'm at a loss for words for how that ended up. That was an 18-second deficit for Josh going into Turtle Rock. He closed it to 5 seconds through Turtle Rock, and then just a little bit of execution here and there. I thought the Mimic's 2 mistake was probably going to bite him because it left him with no arrows for Gauntlet, but he was able to fight through it, and then, you know, BluntBunny unfortunately ended up with a number of warps there on Ganon, just kind of evened it out there, and then it came down to phase 4 execution, it looked like. Blunt unfortunately we're going to see if we can get Blunt and Josh in here. There's Blunt, there's Josh. Unfortunately, in that phase 4, when you try to get that free spin, you've just got to hope that Ganon tries to warp away. What happened to Blunt is that Ganon warped to the spot he was in, which causes that blue. And it means that he can't get the free spin and puts him a couple of spins behind. But guys, GG, solid race. Congratulations to Josh and Blunt for a spectacular race. What do y'all have to say for yourselves?
Yeah.
I didn't have the restream open, but I had the chat open, so I knew a bit, I guess. Just from reading the chat.
I knew you had 5 blue balls.
Yeah, after that, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, 5 blue balls loses around 30 seconds to 1. So after that, I was like, well,
good race.
It's gonna be tough.
Well,
to put
yeah,
back.
I knew I had a lead on you. Because I knew you had 5, and I was like, "There's no way he's ahead." And then, like, everything that happened in Dark World was like such a catastrophe. Like, I was actually surprised you didn't catch up sooner.
Yeah, I had some good splits, like a 701 Meyer and a, you know, I had a 608 Pod. Like, I had some good ones. Didn't you both? Did you do that too, Blunt?
What?
A 2-cycle Landmo?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I had a 3. I saw the 2-cycle as well. Like, I kept tabbing over every once in a while to see, because I wanted to see how many blue balls you got. That was the main reason.
Oh yeah.
But it seemed like you gained time on me everywhere. Like, I had so much dumb stuff happen. I was like getting like really frustrated, especially in Turtle Rock. I don't know if you almost died in Turtle Rock too, but I know I did.
Well, actually, so you guys were both entering Laser Skip at about the same time, and I made the idiotic comment of, well, Laser Skip at this level is a pretty basic trick, and I don't expect it to go terribly wrong. And then, Blunt, you basically made approximately 3,000 people simultaneously crap their pants. Because
I did too, so
3,001. When you So for those that didn't quite catch what was going on, Blunt had a little bit of trouble where the red beetle came back to center, and he tried to slash it out of the way, and it damage boosted him up right through a laser.
Yeah, it was like, I think I was frames away from dying. Like I think I screamed out loud when that happened. And I like dashed down, and luckily he fell to the side, and I was like, oh, thank God. And I was so worked up from that, I almost messed up Trinex too. I think I was too early on the ice rod shot, and it went through him.
And then I didn't quite catch what happened to Josh, but I looked over and I saw 5.5 hearts. I looked back to Blunt and I looked over and I saw 1.5 hearts.
I canceled early and took a laser to the chin.
Oh no,
yeah.
That's almost as bad. I mean, what? I had something stupid happen in Thieves in the jelly conveyor room.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I should have just I don't know. I felt like I handled it wrong, but I fell in the top of the room.
Oh wow.
So that was 7 seconds or something like that.
You also dashed in and you got sparked too. That was where it started. You dashed up and you got sparked, and then you fell.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I got hit by the that was so weird. I don't know. I feel like I always handle that room correctly. That one particular time, it was bad.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because entering the room, you can normally see the red jelly at least at the top, but it felt like he was actually off the screen and you didn't see him until you started dashing up.
Yeah, it was just really, really weird. I don't know. And then something weird happened in the ISO world where, when you're dashing up to the Quake screen, and those Octorocks 99.99% of the time never ever get in your way. Well, this guy was waiting right there and shot me in the face.
Yeah.
That's really dash.
That's tough to react to.
Yeah. Josh, you were behind 18 seconds entering Mire. You were behind 18 seconds entering Turtle Rock, so you guys had pretty much the same
you had
Mire.
a good Mire then. You must have had a really solid Mire.
It was good. I just missed I missed Zero Cycle Vidi because one of the eyeballs got in front of my sword. So luckily I had 10 million hearts and it didn't matter.
Both of you had a bit of an adventure climbing Death Mountain to Turtle Rock, and then we got to Chomps. And
mine were perfect.
Yours were perfect.
I had a party for sure.
Oh, okay.
I was hanging out in that room for longer than I wanted to. It was I got the one RNG where the guy comes down and you can't squeeze through him. He's in your way. So I kind of waited, and I put the block at the top of the room, and then the Chomp I don't know, the timing was off. The Chomp was blocking the chest. He was just sitting there, and I already took 2 hits. So it's yeah. So it's just I got the fairy before, so I had lost 8 hearts in that room, and I didn't want to take another hit, so I had to just wait. So
yeah. Speaking of that fairy, I'm surprised we were kind of talking about when you lost your sword beams going into Aga's Tower, Josh.
Oh yeah, that was a really stupid mistake. Oh man.
But then
about that.
But then you didn't try to preserve the prize pack in the 2 blue cards. You just went in there and spun. Oh, you just go for it.
I gotta say, I was really impressed that you had a backup for the previous room prepared, though. That extra.
Oh yeah, I kind of came up with that.
Yeah, that's a good strat. You're talking about the shooting the arrow to the right with.
Yeah, for the
that's faster than anything, and it saves arrows.
Yeah. Yeah, you hear people kind of joke around in the chat, why aren't the runners running on fixed RNG, and all that. And you start off with 5 blue balls to 1, but then you get to the Ganon fight, and it always has a way of evening itself out a little bit. And those phase 3 warps, Blunt, did you count them?
No, I get mad after 5 and stop counting. But it was 5, I think. I was just, I knew. When I entered the Ganon fight, I was like, if this is close, if I lose this to warps, I'm gonna be mad. But I really wasn't mad because it looked like you had a way, way better run than I did, overall.
Oh, yeah.
Especially since you got 5 blue balls, that I felt pretty bad. I think I got 1. or
Yeah.
something. I think it was just one.
Yeah.
I knew because like I only had 2 warps, and I knew it wasn't that big of a separation. Like I was glancing over at the chat, and they were I don't know 17 seconds or something. They said something like that. Difference.
Well, you were really close
Entering Ganon.
You were really close entering Aga, and you started off with the triple, and you followed it out. Followed up with,
yeah.
with the strikeout.
yeah.
Oh, what was your Ganon's tower time?
7:14.
Oh, I got a 7:05. I was like, man, this is good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, you the whiff on the second cycle of Aga too.
Yeah, I decided what I wanted to do too late, and
That's exactly what Scutch said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could tell. I could recognize that.
Yeah, you could recognize. Yeah, but I was fighting Ganon in the 4th phase, and I could see in the corner of my eye, Chad is like flying, at like light speed. And at that point, I knew you'd gotten a bunch of warps, or that something had gone wrong, and that I had taken the lead.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was a deserved win overall. Since you really got screwed on blue balls. I mean, I had a pretty frustrating run overall, but it was almost a 124, which was surprising.
Yeah, same.
Like, yeah,
like
for you,
almost
that's really good.
Almost getting a 124 with 5 blue balls. You'll take that. I'll take that any day.
Yeah,
you know?
I think Jake pointed out that 0 blue balls. This is a PB for you, right, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, your PB
Yeah.
definitely doesn't reflect your current skill.
It would be a 124.30 with 0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
with
so yeah.
with 5 blue balls and 125.06 is really good. And BluntBunny, I actually got to ask you kind of a difficult question, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a 125.12. According to my notes here, that's the best time you've gotten in this tournament so far, and it
because
wasn't
it's-
enough to take down Josh. I got to ask you, do you think that this guy can be beaten?
I really just need a good run, like that just doesn't have like if I just didn't have that catastrophe in Turtle Rock, I think I would have won.
Well, I
Only
mean,
because of blue balls, only because of blue balls, but that's like the thing. I always seem to have something really ridiculous go wrong.
not to make a sports metaphor, but if the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers could come back from a 3-1 deficit against the 73-9 Golden State Warriors and win the 2016 NBA championship, I think Blunt could come back potentially
What are
from
you
a
talking
0-1
about?
deficit. I'm sorry, I'm completely. I gotta bring it up every time I get a chance. I think Blunt could possibly come back from an 0-1. I'm just not to make a
Definitely
sports
possible.
metaphor, but to make a sports metaphor.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I just Josh. I knew going into this that if I was gonna lose to anyone, I'd rather lose to Josh because he's had such a good performance throughout the whole tournament. So
Yeah, Josh is good now.
yeah.
When did that happen?
mean, like me and him did a lot of work in like January and February on theory testing and just doing all the rooms and lots of research. I learned a lot from him, so very, very fortunate to have made it this far. Get my time this low.
Well, I think that we will let you two both decompress from this, and we'll check back in with you guys in the next couple of days to get the second match scheduled, and we will be rejoining everybody here on Speed Gaming sometime in the next. I would say sometime within at least the next week. I would imagine, because I don't believe either of you are going to GDQ.
No.
Right. So, yeah, but I think I've had about all the excitement that I can take.
Me
Oh
too.
yeah. I need to calm down so I can get some sleep tonight. After that.
Was it a good it looked like a good race, right?
It was very tight
At least
throughout.
it was a good looking race. So that's good.
Yeah, but so I think that about wraps it up for us. So again, congratulations to Josh for winning this first of the best of 3. Congrats to Blunt for putting on an excellent race yourself. I want to thank my co-host, the eternal fount of knowledge that he is, the mysterious Flash Toby Crackett.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an epic name, by the way. Where's that from?
Nickname, that's his real name.
It's from Oliver Twist.
Oh, okay.
I made this alt account name right after I finished reading that book.
Wow.
That's a name.
And I have been and will continue to be Scrivo. Thanks again to Feasel and the entire staff at Speed Gaming for hosting the thousands of matches, it feels like, that we've had thus far in this tournament. And with that, say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thanks
Good night,
for
y'all.
coming.
Oh, y'all.
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 Rolling out.
Rolling out.